Alright, everyone, it's July 1st. Pack up your shit, pack up all the rainbows. The gay shit is over. It's July 1st, ladies and gentlemen. But, you know, there aren't really any rainbows to pack up. I mean, there's literally nothing. Even the corporations didn't pretend to give a fuck this year. Um, Shit. Well, hello, everyone. Tis I, Zekro3, y'all know me. Oh, at some point or another, I was going to have to reintroduce myself, but I am, well, at least I consider myself to be transgender at the moment. Hooray! I've been doing my best to go by Natalie with she/they pronouns, that kind of thing. There's going to be people who see this video who I know but haven't spoken to in a while or just haven't told about this whole thing, and if you're one of those people, surprise! This isn't necessarily how I wanted you to find out, but, no time like the present. No time like the present, I guess. The present of July 1st, the day after Pride Month. There's gonna be some different topics in this video, other than the fact that I appeared out of thin air once again to present you with socio-political commentary. Hooray! I kind of wanted to talk about this because July 1st has hit, and I saw a video, the classic clip of My Little Pony. I don't remember her name, the pink one, vacuuming up the rainbow, and it just says July 1st, and I was like, that's funny. Come on, that's a classic. We all know that one. But then I thought about it, and I was like, what rainbows? There was like nothing. The corporations didn't even pretend to give a shit this year. Target didn't make their Target all rainbow. Xbox didn't make their Twitter profile rainbow instead of green. Like the corporations didn't even pretend to care for profit. That's interesting. I wanted to go over some of the things that did happen during Pride Month. There is still a lot of mocking and derogatory commentary from political figureheads in our government towards the trans community or the queer community in general. People still discuss, gender-neutral bathrooms and all that bullshit, like we should really give a shit about that right now. Gas has shot up to like $4.15 by me. Things continue to be very unlivable. I don't feel comfortable identifying the way I want to at my new job because I don't want to raise eyebrows or anything, right? Because if my name tag just says Samuel instead of Natalie, why should they ever give a shit? No one's going to bat an eye. But as soon as it says Natalie, people kind of look at you, because I appear to be a man with facial hair and male features. And that's fine. That's how I was born. I don't really necessarily have a problem with it. I used to be like, oh, well, I don't meet XYZ list of requirements to even identify that way. I don't look feminine. I don't sound feminine. I don't do feminine shit. And then I realized through a lot of people helping me to realize it that who cares? And I just went with it. And I guess it's always going to be a thing where, certain things of yourself you only show to certain people, right? But I'd like to be publicly who I choose to be, and I don't really have that opportunity, especially not with my family. I have a very religious family on my mom's half of the family, at least. As for my dad's half of the family, my dad's very sweet, and a lot of them are very normal people, but they're also older and have some redneck history, to put it politely. I don't know their socio-political views on things. They don't talk about it because it's barely relevant half the time when we're just hanging out. They talk about stuff that affects them directly, which is fine. They don't talk about stuff like that. That's just, you're gay people, Like they don't talk about that. It's a very jarring experience. But yeah, I mean, with my mom's half of the family, there's a long list of things, but I started experimenting my own ways. I dress differently. I make my voice sound a little different, and I'm not going to sound like that all the time. Sometimes I just want to talk normally, but identify the way I want to, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But when I want to be able to have fun and just do what I want. I want to sound like this right now. Who cares, right? Well, some people would. There's a bit of a story I want to tell. I bought a pair of boots that aren't conventionally men's, and normally I just kept them upstairs, but at one point they got dirty, so I just left them by the door. I figured, who cares? No one will notice. That was stupid of me to think. I lived with my grandfather, and he did notice, and started texting my mom asking if they were hers, because, she was the last woman to enter this house, really. But no, my mom texted me, and she was like, do you know whose these are? And I could have lied. I could have went, oh, they're a friend, I'm holding on to them for a friend, or I'm not sure, any list of lies that I could have came up with, but I didn't. I told the truth. I said, oh, they're mine. And she said, honey, no, they're not. I've seen the pictures. And I was like, yeah, they are. They're mine. And this turned into a whole conversation about, just don't do it in front of your grandfather. Don't stress him out. Don't make him think of questions that he probably can't answer right now. We grew up differently in a time where men didn't wear women's clothes or shoes or whatever she said, right? So it's my fault. I did this to them. I am creating unnecessary stress for them by just trying to express myself how I want. I'm at fault. Like I'm committing some kind of crime by trying to just be who I want to be. And I don't think I need to really explain why that sucks, a lot. And, I get a little tired of pretending to not care that that's the case, I get a little tired of pretending that I'm okay with the way that my family acts, that it's just family, that I have to ignore it and I'll get over it. And I'm tired of that. I want to be me. I want other people to be able to be themselves without them having some sort of private conversation where they're belittling them. Little do they know, someone in their midst is being directly affected by the things they say. And of course I could just say something, but that would create more unnecessary stress for me. And I know it wouldn't change the way they think. And the thing that would change is how they respect me and view me as a person. And they would ask dumb questions and they wouldn't even listen to the answers I give them. So, again, just stuck having to not be me, and being at work, the most, trans way of expressing myself is putting on a headband because we can't wear hats, and I like to keep my long hair out of my face. It's funny, even at my job, we've been having basically the entire month of fundraising for the veterans, and I think that's fine. I think we should raise money for the veterans, because those are people who gave a lot to save their home and to protect it, and regardless of the government's intentions at the time, they were still the ones that were commanded around, and their lives were the ones put on the line, and they did that. So I still think that deserves respect. And veterans have been completely disregarded and spat on by the government for years. So even if it's for a tax write-off or whatever, as long as our support is actually going somewhere meaningful, then I'll take it, okay? Because corporations are going to be corporations, right? But as long as we actually help someone who's marginalized or disabled from, being deployed or whatever list of things, if I can just, if what I'm doing genuinely helps those people, then I'm all right with it, right? But, Veterans Day is a day, and Pride Month is a month, and no one issue is bigger than the other in this case. I wish we could have addressed both. You know what I mean? I don't like that it had to be one or the other. I wouldn't want it to be Pride Month over Veterans Day, and I wouldn't want it to be Veterans Day over Pride Month, but, it was Veterans Day over Pride Month for an entire month. I mean, I had to spend my entire month asking people for donations to veterans and selling America 250th birthday bags to people than any kind of Pride stuff at all. Maybe there were Pride bags for a day. Maybe. I didn't see them. It just kind of sucks. And I understand that I'm basically asking for a corporation to pretend to care. But at least they pretended at one point. And, regardless of how corporations operate, there are people under these corporations. And I truly believe that when these movements were made to, change the profile pictures and whatever else, and all those corporate stunts, right, that there was somebody at that corporate table who was proposing these ideas in a way that they had good intentions to try and help people feel like they were seen. And whether or not the company turned it in a direction for attention and profit more than to actually give a shit, obviously, there were still people at those meetings who did give a shit. But now they don't even pretend to give a shit. And that sucks. I've had a really hard time, and one good thing out of my job that did happen is There was someone who was trans femme who went through my lane with, I'm presuming, their mother, and they were just really nice, and they seemed so confident, and like they could just do their thing, and their mother seemed really sweet. I of course don't know their situation, but it was just really nice to see, and um, it made me really happy, and it gave me that little kick of motivation I needed to remember that I can do the things I want to do one day, despite everything. But it didn't last. Um, it didn't last. I mean, basically every day I remember that there are bills being pushed in the House or in state governments or whatever to limit the rights of transgender people and that kind of stuff. And beyond being transgender, I'm bisexual, and I came out to my parents about that last year, and they were cool with it. My mom and my dad both. But this whole thing I haven't said to either of them, and my mom is just, she's left to her conclusions because I'm never going to explicitly say it to her probably. It just really it feels sucky to have to pretend all the time, to basically constantly know that someone in my family at some point is mocking the idea that I exist or whatever, right? Or at least that I make the life decisions that I do. To give an example, my grandfather, at one point he would be like, the suicide rate among transgender people is disproportionately high. And I said, yeah, it is. But then he goes on to say, I just feel so bad for them, and I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, all those things they're doing to themselves really screws them up. And I'm like, come on, you were so close. You were so close. You were right there. But then you just dove into the ditch at the finish line and then said, how can I blame this on queer people? Like, right, it's so frustrating. And I'm existing in a world that doesn't care about me at all, and you could say that about literally anything, but like especially my lifestyle, and people refuse to acknowledge or support the idea that there is very real violence still happening against this community every day, that our rights are being encroached upon just for existing actively in our government, because that's what we should be focusing on right now, right? All this type of stuff, and it's just really draining. Makes me want to give up. Like a lot. Just makes me want to give up. But I can't give up. I can't go back on who I've decided that I am, who I've discovered myself to want to be. I can't go back. I can't. I want to be who I am, and I feel that this is who I am. And the idea that I would just go back to, being Samuel, as I was born, I don't like it. So I've made up my mind. Basically, I made my decision, and I'm gonna stick with it. It doesn't matter, but I guess the whole point of me talking about this is just how difficult it's been and how little I feel like I've been seen at all during Pride Month, besides the one Pride parade that we had globally, and that was great. But, just in my own local world, I didn't feel seen at all by anyone except my friends. I didn't feel seen by my community. I didn't feel seen by anybody, especially during a time where people like me kind of need that support more than ever, to know that we're valid, to know that we're going to be okay, that like we can be who we want to be without risk of losing our rights, where real issues are going to take priority over me choosing to identify as a woman. But I don't live in that reality right now. And I know a lot of other people don't either. What I saw in the grocery store that week, I wish was the case for everyone, in those situations, whether you're trans feminine, trans masculine, whatever it is. Just whoever you are, I want you to have that support from somebody, to know that you're seen in times where people want you so badly to be nothing, to just be a scapegoat. I want that for everyone, but I know a lot of people don't have that. I know I certainly don't have that. And as much as I really do appreciate my friends every single day for going along with the things that I want for myself and being supportive, and all of us kind of being in it together, whoever we are, it still just sucks to have all this going on around me, It's really that simple. It just still sucks, and it's still really hard. Well, either way, I I hope whoever you are out there that you enjoyed your Pride Month, because well, I didn't. Alrighty. I've calmed down a bit after recording my last thing, and I wanted to use this time at the end of the video to first of all thank you for listening, if you have, and I want to reiterate that this is just my experience and all that. I don't want to discredit the sort of like the things that people have done, not only for me, but people around the world have done to remind people that they are seen and that they are loved. I want to be someone who reminds people of that as well. And it's hard for me to explain exactly how it feels making something like this that I fully plan to post to the internet without feeling a little selfish, I guess. So I don't know. Either way, I know that I'm not the only person who struggles with stuff like this, and I wanted to take this time also to provide some resources that I'm going to leave on screen for anyone who may be in my situation, who maybe just very much needs someone to talk to, or is just in need of some help during dire situations, whatever it may be. Especially considering our dearest president discontinued the 988 hotline. I just want you to know that there is hope for you. There is. And there's a line I heard from our good man Queso that I try to stick to as often as I can. And what he had said to somebody was, things get better. It may not happen how you want it to happen, but things get better. And obviously that's probably not specifically his quote or anything, but that's what he said, and that really stuck with me. And the other night I had a dream. It was actually last night. I had a dream I was at my register checking somebody out, and it was basically just some random guy that my brain came up with, and he referred to me as ma'am, and I had this big stupid smile on my face, like, holy crap, I can't believe that. And then I woke up, and then like 15 minutes later I was like, oh, that didn't happen. So, but again, these are things that are doable and attainable and within reach, and you know what? We can all have these things one day. In order to get there, it's important for us to know that we are supported, that we are loved, and that we are important, and that who we are is valid. And so I want to take this time to remind everyone who may be listening of that. You're important. This world is better with you in it, and you should do everything you can to be safe, to be happy, whatever you can do. I know it can be so difficult, no matter who you are, to stay happy sometimes, but especially during a time for people like me where our community is constantly being encroached upon by some government entity or whatever it may be, just having to deal with hatred and outcasting every single day. It's exhausting. And I want you to know that you're seen. I want you to know that you're loved. And if by no one else, then by me. I don't have to know who you are. It's still the case. So that's all. And I'll see you guys later.